What's going on, church family? It's Pastor Jay here for your Tuesday, April 28th edition of 6 at 6. I'm so glad that you're joining us, and just so grateful to those that went out yesterday for the first time, going out to Phoenix Rescue Mission. It was cool to hear reports back of those that kind of got together and went down there and enjoyed time together while they were serving, and that is so important to being a member and someone that calls the shelter their own, is to continue to serve like that. So thank you so much for coming out. As you know, yesterday we introduced this new idea for the next few weeks, the concept of is it living? We're going to put this before you, and like I mentioned, just the idea of basically taking a mirror of introspection and looking to see if your life and if your walk with Christ is really truly living. Is it active? Is it healthy? And so Chris had mentioned yesterday just these different elements. He had the acronym of Miss Grin that basically showed just the different elements that something must have to actually be living. The thing about that is, if one of those elements are missing, it actually is not alive. And so I want you to think about that, right? And the first one that we talked about was the idea of movement, that for an organism to be living, it must move. You can think of a blade of grass, or you can think of a bird in the air, or you can think of a tree, right? The tree that's gone down and its roots have gone deep and they're expanding, they're growing, they're changing. Unlike this rock right here, which has mass, which has elements to it, but it's not growing, it's not changing, it's not moving, it's just a rock, right? So this is the concept behind this, and I think the idea when we think of movement is you and I to constantly pushing ourselves forward to evolve in our walk with the Lord. The terrible thing that I believe is that so many of us, we haven't moved forward in our sanctification process. We haven't had any movement since the day that we asked Jesus into our heart. I talk about it all the time, that our walk with Christ should be more than just avoiding sinful pitfalls. That is not a victorious life. A victorious life in Christ is extending your faith out and growing and changing as God moves you. You move with God. And so the first concept that I want us to think about today is the idea of making the first step in movement, right? James talks about it a little bit in this, right? James chapter 4, where he talks about the idea of what? Drawing near to God so that he might draw near to us. Let me read this out of the New Living Translation, out of James chapter 4. It says this: so humble yourselves, verse 7, humble yourselves before God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Come close to God, and he will come close to you. Who makes the first step in this? I've always been reminded, and I think of this when I think of drawing near to the Lord, about the prodigal son. The prodigal son had a lifestyle pattern that wasn't pleasing to his father. He went out, blew everything. We know the story. But what happened? It says that he came to his senses. When he came to his senses, he didn't just stop with coming to his senses. He actually moved. He actually said, let me go to my father. What I've always loved about the depiction of the story is the father is sitting there, out there, waiting for that first move to happen. See, I want you to know that the concept and the truth behind a proper living Christian walk is that daily you ask the Lord, today move me, Lord. I will follow you where you go. My trust is completely in you. And I think some of us are really stretched with this concept, and we're stretched with this concept because we don't love to move. We love to get comfortable. And actually, Kim and I are going to talk about that a little bit tomorrow. But what I want you to do is I want you to take out James chapter 4, verse 7, and what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to read it in different versions this week. I encourage you to read it in the Message version to really see what James is talking about when he's saying drawing near. We must have something that we are going towards every day. Otherwise, we're nothing but a sinking stone. I know it's your and I's desire, right, to actually live a life, as Jesus would say, abundantly. Are you living this week? It starts with your movement. I'll talk to you tomorrow.